Welcome back to the news at 10. 1 in every 4 adults is diagnosed with arthritis, according to surveys. Arthritis describes around 200 rheumatic diseases and conditions that affect the joints in the body. Our correspondent, Yomi Otaigbe, reports.
Walking or moving from one place to another appears effortless on the surface. But looking deeper through this 3D animation, you can see the active roles the bones and joints play in movement. However, these joint functions can be impaired by a medical condition known as arthritis.
We say arthritis, simply put, is a chronic degenerative condition of any joint in the body, right from the joints in the neck to the back, to the upper limbs, to the spine, the lower limbs, even the foot and the ankle. 2 bones articulate to make a joint, and at the ends of each of those bones, where we've called the cartilage. Now, that cartilage is usually nourished by what we call the synovial fluid. Now, if for reasons starting from trauma, for example, if someone has had a fracture or a dislocation around the joint, then even infective processes, it can damage the articular cartilage of that joint. You understand? And if it's a weight-bearing joint, for example, when you put more load and stress on that joint, the rate of regeneration of that cartilage would be faster. Eventually, the cartilage thins out, and eventually, it is lost. So it now gets to a point where bone is now rubbing on bone.
These bones rubbing on each other result in pain, which is one of the symptoms of arthritis.
Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, it's a pleasure meeting you.
A consultant joint replacement surgeon at the National Orthopedic Hospital, Igbobi, Lagos, Dr. Wakil Lawal, who runs a joint clinic, says 80% of his patients have arthritis. He shares his insight into the possible causes of arthritic conditions in younger people and more on the symptoms.
If you look at arthritis, we look at it as a primary and secondary. A primary in which we can't really lay our hands on a cause, a significant cause of it. And then the secondary is a type of arthritis where you can say this is what causes it, has an etiology, a particular cause. And in such situations, we see it in the earlier age group. If you notice generally in our population, we have people with either bow leg or K leg. Understand? Because that changes the line of weight bearing. They are likely to be affected by osteoarthritis earlier in life if it's not corrected early enough. Then infections should affect the joints, tuberculosis, maybe any septic arthritis, any bacterial infection in the joint, which, if they are not properly managed, will also lead to early onset osteoarthritis. One of the complaints of the patient could be pain, and pain comes in different severity. But apart from that, they will be telling you that when they sit down for a long time and want to stand up, the knee gets stiff, so it becomes free as they try to walk. But the most important symptom is still the pain. Then some will also tell you that their leg becoming deviated. Someone that has a straight leg before developing either bow leg or K leg.
Apart from drug treatment, the use of assisted weight-bearing aids and a last resort to surgery, the doctor gives more tips on the management and preventive measures against arthritis.
There are certain conditions that put unnecessary stress on the joint, one of which is obesity. You understand? Because if you are obese, you're putting much stress or more stress on your joint, and the tendency is that the individual will develop osteoarthritis faster. Then, if you have malalignment of the joint, for example, K-leg, bow leg, so if you see it in children, we usually counsel them to come for surgery so that the alignment will be also restored. And with that, I think we could reduce the incidence, the burden. The other thing is that we can also reduce the progression. Yes, so some people that have been afflicted, you can reduce the progression of disease. Because it's a progressive disease, you may not be able to stop it, but you can limit the progression. And one of the ways what we do is that we counsel them to avoid the position that puts unnecessary stress on the joint. For example, excessive squatting. If you squat so much, you're putting so much strain on that joint, and it speeds up the rate of degeneration.
Osteo and rheumatoid arthritis are the two common arthritic conditions in Nigeria, although there are no comprehensive local statistics to rely on. Global prevalence of both conditions, according to the World Health Organization, vary between 0.3% and 18%. Yomi Otaigwe reporting for Channels Television News.
Hello, welcome to Business News. I'm Anne Mwawadu. Some information system analysts have called on the federal government to step up efforts in data gathering through a centralized regulatory means. The Executive's Information Systems About Audit and Control Association in Nigeria stated this while reacting to the diverse channels of biometric registration across the country. They asked the federal government to approve the data registration blueprint of the National Information Technology Development Agency for this reason.
Part of the world where they have data, there are regulations that says that this is the minimum data an organization should keep. For instance, in a place like the US, where even breaches that they face from hackers, they are supposed to maintain the information and also report the information. But in this place, we do not have requirements that says this is the minimum data companies should keep, and this is the minimum data, this is the minimum disclosure requirements that is required from companies. And even the government itself has not yet been able to achieve that.
Yes, part of the issue we are discussion we are having with NIDA is to have a national conference where we can discuss how to centralize the Nigerian database system instead of having different silos, different ministries and parastatals having their own. We have to find a way to integrate all the silos that we have of database and now have a central database. A typical example is if you go to the US, the hospitals, they have their own database when you give birth, but that information is passed down to the central database of the state, which also goes to the federal government. So the same thing we are trying to work with NIDA to come up with a framework that will guide how we gather information, where it is kept, and who is responsible for its custody.
The Nigerian equities market ended the week unimpressive as the bears maintained their grip on medium capitalized stocks. The all-share index shed 0.13% to close at 33,621.75, while the market capitalization closed at 11.47 trillion naira by the same margin. 24 price appreciators and 42 decliners were recorded in the week. Top on the gainers log is PZ Cussons with 5 naira 80 kobo increase, while Akomo Oil moved uptick by 14.80%. NACO Avians leads the losers column with a 14.08% loss. Costain shed 10 kobo as Better Glass declined by 9.32%. UBA, Multiverse and Cornerstone were the volume shockers for the week, contributing 37.77% to the overall market volume. The financial service sector, natural resources and consumer goods added the major boost to the figures of the week. In all, the market returned 1.55 billion units of shares at a value of 17.53 billion naira and in 17,785 deals. The National Securities Dealers over-the-counter market recorded its largest single trades by volume and value at the just concluded week. Over 127.18 million units of Friesland Campina Wamco equity was swapped at the market for 315 naira 67 kobo at a value of 40 billion naira. The latest figure represents an increase of 17% on the previous largest transaction of 108 million units since the market's 24 months of history. Analysts have been attributing the recent activity increase to the impact of the Securities and Exchange Commission's rule on trading of unlisted securities on the OTC market alone. Nigeria plans to raise 70 billion naira worth of treasury bonds with maturities ranging between 5-year and 20-year at an auction next week. According to the Debt Management Office, it will issue a 5-year bond to raise 40 billion naira, a 10-year paper to raise 15 billion naira, and 20-year debt notes to raise 25 billion naira on June the 17th using the Dutch auction system. Now, the papers are reopenings of previous issues. President Barack Obama has made a personal appeal to congressional Democrats to back his trade agenda as economic ties with Asia hang in the balance. Hours after divided lawmakers were due to vote on legislation central to his hallmark Pacific Rim trade deal, Obama visited Capitol Hill with Labor Secretary Thomas Perez for the culmination of an intense effort to build support among Democrats over the last 24 hours. Many Democrats are concerned about a program to help workers hurt by trade, which must pass before the House of Representatives vote on the Fast Track Authority, and Obama needs to complete the 12-nation Trans-Pacific Partnership. While he rarely visits lawmakers on their own turf to press for his legislative priorities, instead preferring to meet them at the White House and sends his senior officials to work the halls of the Capitol. That's it on Business News. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anu Awadu. The News at 10 continues in just a moment.
Next on the News at 10, Nigeria's Super Eagles beat Chad 2-0 to get their 2017 AFCON qualifying campaign to a winning start. That's on Sports News. Please stay with us.